Here we go, the first shovel of dirt for the new foundation. So, we're getting it. It's a little tough to dig in this freezing weather here, but we got it.
This is, to me, epitomizes Franklin, where we want to preserve what we have and honor our history.
It's a very moving and emotional event.
Because it's part of Franklin's heritage, and there are not many buildings left.
It's a bittersweet moment. We're losing our beautiful view, but I never thought I would say this, but now that I'm seeing it here, I think it belongs here.
It's a wonderful example of a Greek revival building.
It means a lot to me. I have an extreme love of history, and I love making connections with families. I do a lot of research of the settlers that are buried in the cemetery, and the German family, the Kregers, are probably related to a good share of the people that are buried there. They're the very early pioneers.
Historic preservation, especially in a community like Franklin, which is the town that time forgot, gives us that sense of place. Sometimes when you go there, there's no there, but when you come to Franklin, you know you're in Franklin. It gives you a hug. Well, the property has been in the same family for over 100 years, but Maxine Kreger, who lived in the house her entire life, died a couple years ago, and the family put the house up for sale. It was bought by Craig and Lainey Bauer, who live in Bloomfield Hills. They wanted the property, but they did not want the buildings, so they graciously donated the buildings to the Franklin Historical Society, and they also gave us a generous donation to help move the buildings to a new location. So that is how they became available. They're great, wonderful people to have done this. It would have been a tragedy if these buildings had been destroyed. They date back to about the 1860s, And the building itself, the house itself, is a fantastic example of Greek Revival farmhouse architecture that was very prevalent in Michigan during the 1800s.
The buildings are going to locate on a campus setting right around our village hall, Franklin Road, near where the Franklin Library and the police station are. And our vision for that is that we have a community center similar to what the Birmingham community has, an opportunity for people to gather, hold meetings, and just utilize the facility in a number of ways.
We had, for the final destination, we worked with Gene Hopkins, our architect. He's an historic architect, and what he did is we did visioning exercises with him, how it should be used, where, and that helped us think about where the building should be placed. We had actually 4 locations in and around the village green that would have worked. But the one that we chose next to the police station and next to the Broughton House was actually the very best one of all. The Broughton House was built at the same time, and it's of the same scale as the Kreger House. So the two of them side by side together in a little campus arrangement will be a great enhancement to our visually to downtown Franklin.
Well, we've got several plans in place. One would be to use the barn, which will be enlarged a bit, and it'll give us a chance to have larger meetings there, probably up to 50, 60 people. Someone might want to rent it for a wedding or a reception like that. The actual house itself will be used for office space and storage. And then the final use would be for the little shed. We're talking about trying to possibly have some public restrooms there.
I'm an historic district commissioner, and I've lived in Franklin for 14 years. My husband and I live in an older home, 1926 farmhouse, and I just love history and I love old buildings and I love Franklin, and I am just passionate about historic preservation because once it's gone forever.
It's a tremendously exciting event for me personally. I happen to live in a historic home that was built in 1840. It was the last house moved here in the village of Franklin, and that was back in 1974. It was relocated from Northwestern Highway to where it sits right now on Scenic Drive.
My husband grew up in Franklin, and he has lived across the street from this house since he was 2 years old. And so it has been the view out his front window for the last 60 years, and it's been the view out my front window for the last 30 years.
President of the Franklin Historical Society, and the buildings were donated to us. So we've more or less been the facilitator in getting the buildings moved here and raising funds.
How do you feel?
Well, we've lost a few nights' sleep because we've been pretty excited about this. We've had maybe 90 days from the time we knew that the Bauer family had donated the structures to the Historic Society. So in 90 days, we've tried to do something that we knew nothing about, and we organized groups from the Franklin Community Association, the Garden Club, the Cemetery Association, so it's not just the Historic Society that's been involved.
There are a number of people that have been behind this process. I'm Mike Seltzer. I'm the president of the Franklin Community Association, but we have found a tremendous outpouring of passion from a number of people within the community that's been helping to facilitate this move and save this illustrious and historic Kreger home.
The citizens are supporting it because they are going to be donating money for the moving, for the restoration of the building once it's on the community ground. And the government's supporting it also.
Actually, this is an interesting situation where all this activity will be involved with people donating money. There will be no tax dollars involved at all for this activity. In fact, there's an initiative underway, and you can go to KregerHouse.com and donate money to this cause.
This project, we were notified approximately 40 days ago that from the Betty Lee Hepworth from the Historical Society contacted our office and asked us about if we could come out and quote to move the Kreger farmhouse here in Franklin, Michigan. I told her we would set a date up to come out and take a look. We provided her an estimate later, and about 15 days after we were done with that, she told us we had the job. We were moving 3 structures, a house which had to be moved in 2 pieces because of the excessive width and the way that it had to be loaded. So the kitchen was severed from the back part of the house and set aside and going to be moved as a separate piece. There was also a barn and a small shed. The house weighs approximately 35 tons, and the back piece of the kitchen probably weighs roughly about 8 tons. The shed is sitting probably about 4.5, maybe 5 tons, and the barn behind you is approximately 17 tons. We plan on moving all the 2-story pieces in order to the site because we have to have the logistics of the water support companies and tree trimming companies. The total move, what I've calculated out to be, is right at 3/4 of a mile. The route that we have to take is going west on Scenic Drive to Wellington. And then we take Wellington all the way up to in front of the church for where we turn onto Carroll Drive. And pull up and position it by the park. On a time like this, our average convoy speed could go from anywhere between 5 and 15 miles an hour. So theoretically, we could be there in approximately 4.5 minutes. But we cannot move any faster with the slowest utility company, which is raising and lowering wires. Some secondary lines that go directly to houses have to be interrupted, which will be cut from by Detroit Edison, and set on the ground. We pass over, and a bucket truck will be right behind it and reconnecting. So that time for us to facilitate that passage would be approximately 15 minutes that people will be out of power.
The process that we went through, there's a group of us that have worked very hard up to now, and I specifically worked with most of the utility companies that have been extremely cooperative. Comcast reduced their price half. Mike's tree surgeon has been just phenomenal in going through prior to the move and now in helping us with the project. We've had community assistance every place you can think of. So we are really thrilled about the joint endeavor to make this happen today.
Bill Lamott is the driving force behind the moving of the Kreger farmhouse and all of its buildings. Bill Lamott and his wife Ann live just 2 doors down from the property, and so they've viewed it every day that they've lived in Franklin. And Bill and his wife are members of the Franklin Historical Society, but even more than that, they just dedicate their lives to history. They live in a historic home themselves. So when the opportunity came to have these buildings given to the Historical Society, Bill and Ann Lamott stepped right up and said, yes, we'll take them. And then it became, oh my goodness, now we have to raise the rest of the money to move this building. And he did so much work. He did all the background work. He did the municipal work. Bill is also a member of the village council. He's a trustee. And he and Ann just worked incessantly. They got the committee together. They said, okay, this is when we're going to meet. And he had the agenda. He created the 501c3. He and Ann put the banner on that house that says, watch us recreate our past. I can't remember exactly what it says, but he put the banner on the house. There was a little hole in the side of the barn, and he didn't want there to be a hole in the side of the barn, so he cut a piece of wood, and he was out there in the dead of night hammering this piece of wood to the side of the barn so we wouldn't see a hole in the barn as it goes by. So he and Ann are just amazing resources for the village of Franklin.
This will be an ongoing project. The first effort will be to get it in place, and that, as you can tell, we have to do quickly because the homeowner is going to be constructing a home here shortly. But as we go forward, it'll probably be several years before things are finally put in place and completely ready to go.
We're just very excited to see the buildings here. We have another half of the house to come down yet, and we have the shed as well.
I think for me, this farm and this house is Franklin. It's just all that Franklin's about. It's the rural, agrarian way of life that's now past. And it just symbolizes that. And I'm so pleased that it's going to be saved.
Today we're making history in Franklin. We've got the Kreger buildings at destination here, as you can see. We're pretty excited. It's a pretty uneventful day, which we were hoping for. And we're really looking forward to working with the rest of our community and turning these buildings into something pretty neat for all of us in Franklin. So I'm Bill Lamott. I've been involved in the process since August, and it's just been a really satisfying experience having all of a lot of people in town come together and make this thing happen. A lot of work to do still, but it's coming together and looking pretty good. So we're excited. Here we go, the first shovel of dirt for the new foundation. So, we're getting it. It's a little tough to dig in this freezing weather here, but we got it.
This is, to me, epitomizes Franklin, where we want to preserve what we have and honor our history.
It's a very moving and emotional event.
Because it's part of Franklin's heritage, and there are not many buildings left.
It's a bittersweet moment. We're losing our beautiful view, but I never thought I would say this, but now that I'm seeing it here, I think it belongs here.
It's a wonderful example of a Greek Revival building.
It means a lot to me. I have an extreme love of history, and I love making connections with families. I do a lot of research of the settlers that are buried in the cemetery, and the German family, the Kregers, are probably related to a good share of the people that are buried there. They're the very early pioneers.
Historic preservation, especially in a community like Franklin, which is the town that time forgot, gives us that sense of place. Sometimes when you go there, there's no there there, but when you come to Franklin, you know you're in Franklin. It gives you a hug.
This event is a Kreger Farm barn fundraiser.
Today's event began at 8 o'clock with a 5K run. The run will be followed by a combination strut your mutt dog walk and people walk covering about the same length. At the same time, we're holding a pancake breakfast here and it's going to be wrapped up with some art contests and writing contests and photography contests. The winners of all will be disclosed at the fall roundup here in Franklin.
Well, I was part of the team that's been working on the Kreger project since last August. There are about 20 of us that pulled this event off. It's been really cool because we've had lots of people with lots of specific talents and they all blended together, and this is the result, and it's pretty neat. I'm pretty pleased to be part of it.
My role today was I organized and ran the 5K run. We had a lot of help with that. The committee was very helpful. We had, in a particular note, we had some help from Libby Rutherford. She is a member of a run club in the area and got a lot of volunteers for us, was very helpful with the turnout. We also had some help from some running stores in the area. So we had a lot of cooperation from retailers and a lot of cooperation from volunteers, which really helped pull this off.
We started meeting in January and exploring ways to do fundraisers that would be both fun, raise a little money, get the community involved. And this today's event is the product of all those meetings. A lot of people getting together. It's a good team working on it. We've been meeting for every week for about 2 months to get 3 months to get ready for this. So it's been really a wonderful opportunity to bring our group together.
This race was a good opportunity for people of the community to come out with their dogs or without their dogs, support a good cause with the Kreger farm, and enjoy the great weather for a run.